I'm Dr. Christy Murray, and thank you for those who are joining live and those who may be watching the replay. We have an exciting conversation taking place tonight with Educational Excellence, Inc. and Stephanie Gordon. And we want to really get your attention and to engage with you. And really, we're excited to expand the conversation tonight around higher education and entrepreneurship and how those two can reside in the same space at the same time. So let me first introduce myself. I am Christy Murray, the proud graduate of the Hampton University, class of 1998. And I also am the CEO and president of Educational Excellence, Inc., where we work to help students get accepted into school and graduate debt-free. So now I want to turn it over to my special co-host and guest today, Stephanie, for her introduction.
Good evening, Dr. Christy. Thank you for having me. I am Stephanie Gordon DeBerry. I am currently a realtor. I've been a realtor for 15 years. And I got to this space after moving to the Washington, D.C. metro area to attend Howard University, the real HU, back in 1990. So I've been here almost 31 years, loving my experience, of course, loving my experience at the Mecca, and then what life has brought to me since then. So I've had a very colorful career path, education path, and entrepreneurial journey. So I'm so excited to be here to share this evening.
All right, thank you. We appreciate you being able to join us. I'm sure families can benefit from hearing more about your experiences, both in college and as a professional here in the Washington, D.C. area, where we both reside. And for those who don't know, Miss Stephanie Gordon DeBerry is the one who sold me my last home. And so I really thank you. And you know, it was funny. Let me just start with how we met. I think I was in a furniture store. I was in a furniture store with my sister. She was there looking for furniture several years back. And we ran into Stephanie and her beautiful daughter. And we got to talking. And I don't even remember what we were talking about. We talking something furniture related. Right. And it's funny how you can build relationships. You can network anywhere. So let that be the first golden nugget. Networking is not, it's not dependent on a particular location or time, and it doesn't have to be planned. And so we were just naturally in the store, both doing a little bit of shopping, and we got down a conversation about real estate. I remember her giving me her real estate card. And then I remember giving her information. I don't remember
you.
My book, College Planning.
Yeah, because you know what? I think you were looking at a lamp. It was something with a light bulb. And then that's what got us talking about your book. And I was saying that Chanel was a senior because we had just moved out here. So.
Yes. And so the theme of my college planning, I wish someone had told me book, and you can kind of see it in the background.
Right.
On the left side, I think. Is a light bulb wearing a graduation cap. And so I found this beautiful lamp, a standing lamp, was just a light bulb. And I thought that would go great with the theme. Nevertheless, we get into this great conversation about real estate on one hand and college planning with our high school senior on another hand. And we made a connection. And it was about, it must have been a year later.
Oh yeah, that was like summer. Yeah, because you contacted me the following. Yeah, it's about a year. Yep.
And so we connected a year later, in the middle of COVID, and realized that there was still some mutual opportunities, both with her business with real estate, and also the work that I did in the space of helping students try to find funding for school. So that was the beginning of a great partnership, and I've learned a lot of wonderful things about Stephanie since that time and work that she's doing out in the community. So Stephanie, can you first, I'm going to back up and have you share a little bit about your Howard University. And I'll give you one with the real HU part, but I will say for all my Hampton University colleagues out there, y'all might have been the first HU, but they perfected it with the Hampton University HU. Tell me a little bit about your experience being on the yard. What was the culture like at Howard University?
Oh my goodness. So I would like to just share a little bit before I got there because it ties into what you do, Christy. So I was a student, great student, A honor roll, Urban League Black Scholar, got scholarships to go to Howard University. I knew I wanted to go to an HBCU. I knew I was college bound. I knew that much. Howard University, my cousin went there. I visited, of course, fell in love with the campus. And I think, they call Howard University the Mecca. It was an amazing experience. I come from upstate New York, Rochester, not as diverse, and I didn't see as many successful people of color, African American families. So I remember when I came down to DC one time to visit my cousin, who was a student at the time at Howard, I got off the plane at DCA, or National Airport, and I just remember seeing a sea of people of color. And I knew right then that I wanted to be in DC and at Howard University. And of course, Howard University has an esteemed alum. We all know that. And I just knew that that was the space for me. And so, like many of your students that you talk to and guide, and I've been giving you my little feedback on your tips, my parents knew I was going to college, but my dad told me very early on, we didn't have the funds. I was very proactive. I was a student that before Christy came to be, I was doing the exact things that she's talking about. So that's why I know it works. I came down to Howard University. I met with the chairman of the chemistry department. I applied for scholarship. That was my job. That's what I've taught my students, right? Or my children is, this is your job, do well in school, right? And it will pay for itself, right? But then as you know, Christy, finding the funds, it pays for itself. But my experience at Howard, like no other, some of the best years of my life, the culture, just to be surrounded by Black excellence, I'm sure very similar to what you experienced at Hampton. While we have these fun and healthy competition, we know we're all family, HBCU family. We support one another. And I'm sure our experiences are very similar. To be in an environment, to be surrounded with amazing academia and accomplishments. And I can't even fully articulate, because it still gets me so excited about the time that I spent there. And of course, I met my husband. We were college sweethearts. So that was a whole nother aspect of being at school. But it was such a great time. You really had to, at Howard anyway, had to learn how to balance, right? Because there was a lot of partying going on, right? We got to let the young people know there's time to have fun, but then there's time to study.
Yes.
I wish I would have taken more opportunity. I will say this. I wish I would have taken more opportunity to expose myself to all the opportunities that Howard had to offer, because I was so caught up at that time in just the day-to-day studying and then, hanging out with friends. I didn't realize all the trips, the international opportunities that I could have been a part of. So
that's very, very interesting and insightful to hear, Stephanie, just that whole journey, that how you got to Howard. My story was very similar in that I was the youngest of three girls trying to get to school. And when I fell in love with Hampton, for very similar reasons that you fell in love with Howard too, by the way, my parents were like, look, we already have two in school. How are we going to handle this? And your journey was like mine. This was before the internet.
Yes.
Before Google. We couldn't just Google scholarships and have a plethora of scholarships drop down from our screen in front of us. So I tell students, they have such benefit and such access to information now that we just didn't have then. But yet we still found systems. We had a strategic approach to get to the end results that we were looking for. And so I think that was the key point. You knew you were college bound. I heard that loud and clear. And you were not going to be denied that opportunity to matriculate at a powerful HBCU. Now, I want to also be clear to all my potential listeners out there. I loved my HBCU, and it sounds like you did too.
Yes.
I have absolutely nothing against students who attend a PWI, predominantly white institution. I think there's value in diversity. I encourage non-people of color to attend an HBCU, just as I would people of color to attend a PWI. So I think there's a lot of myths, and people will be surprised how culturally diverse HBCUs are. They're not, let's dispel a myth. HBCUs are not just for Black people. It's not just for people of color. They're diverse campuses all across this country. You also talked about being proactive. So when you talk about being proactive, your parents were already clear, hey, we can't afford this. And it sounded like you put together a system. What was involved with your system?
Well, first and foremost, staying on top of my grades, right? Because at that time, I knew if I had good grades, above average grades, that would take me or help me get to the next level. So making sure I did well in my classes. Too, like you said, Chrissy, this was before the internet, right? So these young people, they have no idea of the real work we put in to get funding for school. I remember microfiche. I remember huge
unfortunately.
Books. Huge books, scholarship guides, organizations, as you mentioned, based on what I wanted to study. So at the time, I knew I wanted to go into business. I always saw myself as a businesswoman. When I applied to Howard University, I wanted to create my own hair products. That was my business. I had went and spent a summer at a trade school. I didn't go to the trade high school, but I went there for a summer to study cosmetology. So I just knew I was going to be a Madam C.J. Walker. And when I was at Howard University, I actually met her, granddaughter, great-granddaughter, A'Lelia Bundles, that wrote the book. And she's known for, of course, her book and other things she's been featured in too, concerning her grandmother. But I went to Howard University as a chemistry major because I was like, okay, I want to formulate products. I have this hair. I want to learn how to work with it. But really, I was a business-minded person. Chemistry did not do me well. We can talk about that later. But at the end of the day, what I did do was I set aside time, right? Time, that was my job, to not only research scholarships, organizations that could find me that could award me scholarships, both locally and with Howard University, because I think it was one of your tips that you gave most recently, get on campus, right? Find that money. I came to Howard University before I even graduated, right? And met the chairman. I set that up. I remember calling. Like I said, I was very proactive. I did my research, resourceful, right? We got to teach our young people. The information is there, right? It's even there for them now, a little bit more, it's more accessible, a little bit easier. I had to dig a little bit more back then, but I set up that appointment. I came down and talked to him. He saw my grades. Actually, I had, was supposed to be in the running for a chemistry scholarship from Kodak, because where I'm from is the hometown of Eastman Kodak. And I got denied that scholarship, which was a huge part of me being able to attend Howard University. I came down that summer. I tell you, Christy, he made it happen like in that moment. By the time I walked out of the building, funds were being placed in my account and I had a scholarship. I think there was some money from Mobil, right? Mobil Oil, the gas, or oil company. Yeah. So I would say for me, it was, what do you call it? You just know you got to do what you got to do. And I knew I wanted to be at Howard University. By that time, I had visited so much with my cousin. I went to homecomings. All of our homecomings are amazing events, right? They kind of sealed the deal. I'm like, there's no way I can't be there. And so I just really took the time outside of my schoolwork, outside of my part-time job, took the time to apply and also connect myself with people. My church gave a scholarship. I was very active in my church. So I was one of those students, I know your son is an athlete. I didn't feel like I had talent because some of these scholarships are based on not just academics, but talent. So I always felt like, wow, am I at a disadvantage? But I created a way. And of course, God's blessings helped. And then my second year, I have to share this story. My second year, so I got through my freshman year and I was one of those students, I had all this promise, but some things happened during my freshman year and my grades dropped. And so I lost some of my funding. And I remember getting ready to go back to school for my sophomore year. And I was back in that place again. How am I going to get back to Howard University? Did I miss my opportunity? Did I take advantage fully of the opportunity? I was beating myself up. Anyway, I read an article in our local newspaper that mentioned this woman was a philanthropist. I looked up what that word meant. She had helped this young guy get into the Philharmonic Orchestra in my hometown. So I went across the street to my uncle and I was like, okay, I got to contact this woman out of the blue. Well, contacted her and she connected me to the links organizations, different organizations that I wasn't aware of because my parents weren't involved in those things.
Mm-hmm.
That woman, after spending weeks of trying to find money, I got more money from the Urban League, so on and so forth. She wrote me a check for $20,000, $25,000, somewhere along those lines, to cover my whole year at Howard University. I say that to say, you have no idea where your blessings, in this case, college funding for me, came from. I took a leap. I saw an article that could only be God. Yes. I saw an article said philanthropists. I knew philanthropists are givers, right? I knew that much at 19, right? Okay, they have access to funds, they give. Let me just get in touch with this woman and share with her who I am and my story.
That is outstanding. And, you know, I'll tell you what's so great about that story that you just shared. One of the key words that just stuck out, a lot of things stuck out. And you're right, that's nothing but God. That's a blessing. Whatever your religious beliefs, I do believe in a higher spiritual power intervening and stepping in on your behalf. And that's incredibly important. You talked about something, you know, I asked you about being proactive. One of the things that stuck out was, number one, you got to keep your grades up. I always tell students, do your part. Your grades are a gateway to opportunities opening up in front of you. In fact, I tell students, if you have at least a 3.0 coming out of high school, there's no reason why you should have to pay for school because most scholarships are looking for at least a 3.0. So that's a gateway opportunity. You also talked about your time and how you used it and having the balance. But what really struck me was the resourcefulness and the connections. Now, one of the things I'll tell you about this current generation of students, and no knock, it's just the way they grew up and the way they learn. I call them screen agers because they always have a device of some, you know, some sort of mobile device in their hands, but they lack interpersonal skills.
Yes.
Connections require you to get out and be able to formulate conversations, to design your conversations, and to go advocate for the things that you need. So you mentioned you went to the department heads, you went to a philanthropist, you were by no means going to accept a no until you got to a yes.
Exactly.
So what advice would you give to students and parents who have students who need to encourage them? Texting has its place, but it's not for everybody in every situation. Imagine had you email the dean of the department or the department head and say, hello, my name is Stephanie, looking for money, and you never hear anything back. What advice would you give families about advocating for what it is you need?
Exactly. I would give that advice. And I have a daughter, 18, Chanel, who is fortunate enough to be on the panel representing your young entrepreneurs and college students for the summit. But like I share with you, I share with my children, my oldest as well, the same things that I did. You know, these kids, I like to say they're a little entitled, a little spoiled, but you've got to put in the work. You have to put the phone down. I'm teaching my daughter now, and even before now, but she's actually doing it now, to get out, to network, to meet people. These relational skills are so important. Technology isn't going to save you every time if you don't know how to have a conversation, if you don't know how to shake a hand, if you don't know how to look in the eyes of someone, right? When you're meeting them and having conversation, those skills are priceless. You need both, right? You need the balance. They are amazing on technology. They can find this information. However, you can never not have enough of personal relationships. And you said earlier, networking, getting out. You can't just ask folks for money necessarily, right? without building or attempting to build some kind of relationship. People want to know what's in it for them. I always say the with them, right? Okay, we're going to give you this money. Will you shout us out? You let people know, will you come work for us? Sometimes your scholarships are tied into internships. You have to be willing to give a little too. Right. Some of this is reciprocal relationships, right? That can last you through a lifetime. So what I would say, I have a younger sibling, and my dad would always say, Steph, she wasn't on the scholarships like you were. She was expecting her mom and my dad to pay for college. I was like, wow. And that's when I noticed this is a different generation. How's this working? So I was like, well, Dad, what are you saying? And he kind of took a little lax approach. But see, they never said anything to me. I just did it because I knew what I wanted. So I was internally motivated, right, to get things done. So I would tell these kids, stay encouraged, right, but do the work. We talked about our, religious beliefs and folks that have any type of spiritual belief. I always say faith plus works, right? We always leave off that part. Sometimes we quote that scripture. We have all the faith, but then the work, right? God showed up through that philanthropist for me, but I did the work, had to continue to do the work for her not to bless me just that time, but another time. Another semester when I was at Howard University. So I would say do the work, and guess what? It will work for you, right? You may not see it right away, and don't wait too late, right? Start, you want to go to college, start making these relationships, start going to networking events. I was involved in Inroads. I think Inroads is still around. I was involved in Inroads. That taught me networking. That taught me how to call up the dean of the chemistry department, right? I learned those skills in 9th and 10th grade, right? So then that was nothing for me to know how to set an appointment. Took a bus to Howard University and left with money, right? So I'll tell these kids, use every tool that they have available to them because the tools are in the toolbox. But you have to know which one to use when you need to use it. You're right. Exactly. And what you don't know, there's always somebody that does know. Right. Right. The answers are always there. Use your resources. I should say leverage your resources. There's always people that want to help. Right. Who doesn't want to help a young person if they can? Right. But they can't help you if they don't know what they're helping with. And the theme of my week has been closed mouths don't get fed. I 100% agree with that. I've said that probably about 5 times in the last week working with my own young people, my son, but also others. And I'll tell you, I use my own children. I have a rising junior who's attending Old Dominion University. And my youngest son, which you mentioned, is going to be going to Norfolk State University on an NCAA football scholarship. And plus, he's gotten other scholarships too. But it's about young adults. And it's really about them being able to build those connections you just talked about. Here's what I found out, and I'll continue to find out. They don't know what to say. I'm still working with, and I hate to put them on the spot, but my sons, and I'll say, hey, you should call your financial aid office, or you should call your coach. And well, what should I say? That's true. What do you mean? What should you say? So parents, we have to be willing. We have to, I take personal responsibility for my children having or lacking interpersonal skills. Yeah. As a parent. Right. Because they did grow up with a lot of electronics. So they haven't had to interface as much with people outside of them. And so I start having different conversations with them about what is it, begin with the end in mind. What is you want to get out of the conversation? How do you introduce yourself? How do you ask if other people what they need before you lead in with what you need? How can you make it mutually beneficial? And you kind of touched on that. Right. The thing that you said, and I thought it was powerful. You have to, they expect a lot of other people. As you mentioned, having an expectation that somebody else is going to do ... instead of them rolling up their sleeves and doing the work. And what you made me think about was expect more from yourself. And that's the theme that I'm at with my sons. Please don't have an expectation of me that you don't have of you, which means you got to be able to do that work. You got to be able to make those connections and build relationships. And so I want to pivot off of that point because you talked about working with your daughter too
on a lot of these things. And I promise you, I think my third book is going to be adulting strategies. I wish someone had told me, because they are some phenomenal case studies. It's hilarious the things that young people are doing and saying. And I'm like, are you kidding me? As an adult, what do you mean you don't know what you're not doing X, Y, and Z? So that's something else to think about. But I want to pivot and talk about how, even as a parent, you have all these rich experiences, having attended Howard University, and you're a working professional, and now your daughter is in the young adulting stage, just as my sons are. How do you help her to develop and provide support to her without doing all the work for her?
I'm so glad you brought that up, Christy, because I just wrote that down. Parents, we cannot do the work, right? They won't ever do it if we do it, right? So for me, it's funny, Chanel, just like your sons, I would tell her, you need to call. You need to call. Same thing. Mom, what do I say? So same conversations we're having here with you and I are so much alike in this. And I love it, because I'm like, this is a teachable moment, right? I'll share with you what I think, and then you implement it, and let's see how that goes. I refuse to do her scholarship work, phone calls, any of that, right? I at least let her do the first round. And if I need to come in, I will. But for my children, I always wanted a balance, because I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I attended Howard University knowing that I was going to have my own business. So I always say there's a balance there, right? Definitely go get your education. We can't express enough how important that is. So I do not down education at all. It is so important, even for those who feel like they don't need it to be successful. My daughter starts saying, oh, Mom, people go to school and that doesn't mean they're going to be successful. I get all that.
I'm getting the same conversations.
But go, complete, and the world is yours, right? Do whatever it is you choose to do. I realized, though, all these years I have been modeling for my children, right? I knew my oldest, he told me very early on he wanted to have his own business. I think by the time he was 2 or 3, I had an ATM machine for him, briefcase, just the mindset of business. And he didn't go right to school. He decided he wanted to be a realtor as well, took the class, but then didn't want to work a position that had commission. So I was just like, okay, this is a perfect time when you should go for commission, because you don't have any bills. You're home with me. So it took him a while to get to that mindset. But with my daughter, I never thought she would want to get into real estate, because she said she was going to go to school for nursing. She had showed talent, gifts in other areas. But all this time, for all of my kids, I've been modeling that balance for them, right? So parents, sometimes we don't even realize our kids are watching us. We know that they are, but sometimes until it shows up, I will tell you, Christy, I was pleasantly surprised. She listens, she hears me in conferences, on the phone, coaching clients, guiding clients, coaching real estate agents that want to do better in this business. She's got it down pat. And I was like, oh my goodness, I never knew she was paying that close of attention to everything I had been doing over these years. So my kids saw me model so many different positive attributes as it relates to their futures and opportunities. And I always share this with my kids as it relates to entrepreneurship. You don't have to work for anybody. I made that clear. If that's not what they wanted to do, you don't have to. And I wanted to show them that example. If they chose to, go ahead.
Let me put in a quick disclaimer for all the young people. What she did not say is you don't have to work.
Right.
She said
there's a difference.
Work for other people. Now carry on.
Yes, because I'm that entrepreneur. Now, if you work for other folks, that's fine. I have a long, colorful past of working that provided me with amazing skills that I've transitioned into my own business. But I would say for me as a parent, I modeled that where my daughter and son needed assistance. I stepped in, but I refused to do the work for them, because I'm a living example. You're a living example of it can be done and you will do it. Right? I'll guide you through, but I will not do it. And I think a lot of parents have to do that, because we're like, we can write the scholarship letter better. We can do this better. But how will they learn?
Right.
how will they learn? Right? My daughter wrote her letters. I reviewed them, gave her my feedback. But what I'm not going to do is be you.
And it was funny because I would tell my son as he went through this process, it's funny how you put all this stuff out for other people and other families take advantage of it. And then when my son was going through this process this past school year, he kept saying, well, Mom, well, what should I do about this? And I kept saying, but did you read my book? Because it's all in there.
Right here. Exactly. Exactly. Right. Like, take advantage. I'm here. Right. Yes. Same thing. So my daughter, she actually, I look at her and I laugh sometimes because she's so much like me. And she tells me now, Mom, you don't have to remind me. You don't have to tell me. I'm like, good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So she's starting to, take a lot. She's expecting more of herself than
there
she
you go.
Other people. And I think you brought up a phenomenal point about parents. So students, they should be expecting more of themselves and other people and putting in the work. Parents, you should be there to help develop and coach them and model the behaviors that you want them to learn from. So I'm going to challenge myself, and I'm going to challenge everybody who may watch this live or later. What are you modeling for the young people in your life? Children, nieces, nephews, cousins, family members, neighbors, you name it. People, young people you have opportunity and exposure to. What are you modeling to them? Because they're going to watch what you do a whole lot more than they hear what you say.
Yes.
So I think that's the truth. A key point. Now, you touched on something that I got to circle back around to, and it was around college and entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
A lot of young people, my son and I, my oldest son, the one at ODU, we keep going around the world about the value of a college education and versus entrepreneurship. And let me tell you, my personal belief is please don't try to assume that they are equal and opposites of each other, because they are not. They're complementary activities and opportunities in your life. Right. I strongly believe that knowledge is power. And a college education, while it is not the begin all end all, it is absolutely a gateway again to more opportunities. Yes. And so a lot of young people are like, well, man, you're just gonna come out with a bunch of student loan debt. That's because you didn't do the work. So that doesn't have to be your reality, coming out with the student loan debt. But let's just say you go to college, you graduate, you get a job. That 9 to 5 could be the job that helps you to keep the lights on and the food in the fridge while you pursue your entrepreneurship dreams. So you don't have to replace one with the other. And it sounds like with your journey, you did both. Right. And how do you encourage, and it sounds like both your children, your oldest son and your daughter, you're encouraging them and they're seeing you model the behavior of you can do more than one thing. And this is another theme that I've been repeating this week. You can do more than one thing at a time, and more than one thing at a time well. So expand on that a little bit.
That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. You can. What I would say, because my daughter, after her freshman year, because she's going into her sophomore year, and these COVID students, it's been hard. They did not get that initial experience that you and I both got their first year of school. So I think that added to my daughter's conversation of maybe just being not excited, a little depressed, maybe still uncertain about what she wanted to study. So for me, that brings up this entrepreneurial and college, debate that some people like to have. But like you said, it's very much complementary, because I tell my kids, first of all, college is more than just class. Sure. It is personal development as well, right? This is where you learn how to adult, relationships, network. I mean, there's so many opportunities. Stop just thinking one-sided in one lane, just going to class. But as it relates to class, are we really teaching our young people and children and starting to nurture them early, what their love, what their passion is? Because I believe if more children and young people knew what their passions were, they would understand that college and being an entrepreneur are both ways to help them uncover even more of that, whatever that natural gift, whatever that talent is, whatever you love so much it doesn't feel like work, right? help you pursue that on both ends. So I think that has a lot to do with it, because sometimes, you know, when I went to school, some students were pressured into getting degrees, medical, lawyer, you know, coming from certain cultures, certain families, right? You have to be the first doctor. You have to do this. And sometimes that's not what that student wanted.
A lot of pressure too. A lot of
pressure. Right. So I look at that and I get it. There are cultures and folks that, you know, go along with that. And I understand that. But I do believe that if more of our folks, our kids, you know, these young people were really able to take the time to figure out what they wanted to do, they could see how these two things complement each other. Because I was a chemistry major. I told you I want to develop hair products. I was doing hair for my girlfriends, all types of stuff. So to me, I want to have a business, just makes sense. I love what I'm doing. How can I tie this into my degree and then ultimately have a business? What I did not like was the chemistry part. Okay. 3 years of chemistry and I was at my wit's end. I did not pass every class. It was very difficult. That did not come natural for me. So let me tell you what I had to do, what a lot of students are doing. You have to look at yourself. You have to take an assessment, even if you're 2, 3 years in the school, and say, is this really what I want to do? I had an opportunity to work in a lab. I realized I'm not a lab rat. I'm out here. I'm a people person. I'm networking. I'm doing all types of things. So I had to make the decision to change my major. A lot of kids don't want to call home and say, Mom, Dad, guess what? I think I don't want to study medicine anymore. I want, you know, to study sociology. Yeah. Some parents don't want to hear that, especially if they're paying for school and different things. So I think a lot of this is we have to learn who we are, but that's what the college is though, right? You're learning who you are. You have some best laid intentions. Oh, I want to get a four-year degree in this, or my future looks like this. But sometimes you have to be able to pivot. That's a word you said earlier, right? Because your life going forward is going to be based off of these 4, 6, 8, whatever years, right? So I would encourage young people and parents as early as possible, have these conversations, see what your children really want to get into, because sometimes it may not be a 4-year degree. See, I think we downplay too the trade schools, right? Yeah. We downplay the technology schools. That's my son. I told him to get coding and all that while he was in high school, because he's learning that now on his own, but that's his passion, right? So I think if we encourage more young people to figure out who they are as parents, help them explore that, then when they get to that age where they're starting to make the decisions for school, they can incorporate those things that they love. Absolutely. Right? And then if they want to build a business or have those entrepreneurial desires, they already have that balance because they're a little bit more confident in who they are, right? So I don't know, that's what I would say, because that's really the journey I went on. And I'm so grateful that my parents didn't give me a hard time. I guess they were like, look, you found this money for school, you're gonna figure it out, do what you wanna do, right? So I didn't have that same pressure that some families give their children, but I think sometimes these young people, they're just so uncertain, right?
There's a lot of unknowns for them. And they, you know, we make a lot of assumptions as parents. And I think this is a very important conversation to have around, we make assumptions that, oh, you turn 18, it's a magical switch that gets clicked on. I'm out of here, pieces, you're dudes, you're on your own, whatever that is for you. And that's not the time to completely abandon them and make the assumption that they have it all figured out.
Right.
They need probably coaching in a different way, but absolutely they still need it. And I agree that many students go to school and they end up changing their major. And a couple of things I want to highlight. Number one, life happens.
Yes.
You learn new things about yourself every day. I'm older. I'm a little bit more seasoned, and I'm still learning new things about myself every day. And so we have to give our young people an opportunity to learn new things about themselves and to make adjustments in their own lives. And we be there to support them and give them a little bit of guidance. The other thing I heard you mention that I want to touch on, when it comes down to choosing a major, I am all for choosing a major that has a connection to your passion. But I'll be honest, some of y'all passions ain't gonna help you to eat. And I am a firm believer that you can have more than one passion in your life.
Right.
And so while you might want to pursue a career or a major that is only rooted in your passion, I invite young people to think about what you're naturally good at.
Yes.
What do you do well? Sometimes you do things well that you don't even care to do. But
because it comes so naturally, you don't even realize that you're good at it.
That you're good at. And those are the things that they don't necessarily want to pursue. So there has to be some sort of a, you talked about assessment. You have to take an internal assessment of what's important to you, what you're good at, what you're passionate about. And then you got to try to hone in on what can I do to, which one of those can I develop out in terms of a 4-year degree. Yeah. The other thing I thought was important from your conversation, you started out in chemistry doing all this lab environment sort of mentality work. And there's no knock to that because Lord knows
we need our chemists.
But you learn new things about yourself. I'm not in a lab person. I need to be around people out connecting. And so I would encourage young people to also make sure that you are paying attention to the environment in which you thrive best.
Yes.
If you know,
I agree with all of that.
Being at a desk all day, great. If you're one of those people that, no, I need to be more hands-on, great. If you know that you need to interface with people, or if you know you don't really care for people and you don't really like them like that, be honest with yourself about those things and look for professions that align with your natural comfort zone to some extent. I say to some extent, because I also do believe that you have to push yourself at times out of your natural comfort zone to grow.
I agree.
And so, but naturally, your natural state where you thrive and you can be successful, pay attention to those things about yourself and try to really respect that. And, you know, I want to shift to the whole life happens. You change your major. Things happen while you're in school and beyond. And so we generally have high expectations of our children, and our children have high expectations of themselves, I hope. But we need to also give them room to fail forward.
I love that. Oh my gosh, Christy, we think exactly. It's painful to watch sometimes, but that's where we all have learned, right? It's not actually failing, so to speak, because the lessons are so valuable.
Absolutely.
Right? That they can propel you beyond your wildest dreams, right? It's all in how we react to situations, to life happening, right?
Yes.
As to where we'll end up.
And, you know, people look at you, and I know you probably experienced this just like I have. People look at you where you are today, and they make these natural assumptions that you haven't had to struggle, that you haven't had to figure out a whole bunch of things, that you didn't wake up and cry and yell, get yourself together and go back, continue to do the work that you're doing and deal with those sort of frustrations. And you didn't have to work hard at it. And so I think it's important to highlight that we have to work hard. You can't just look at the end result and think it was easy. You have to look at the entire journey.
I always say it's like a microwave generation. We see people, you know, and I feel inspired. I always try to tell young people, don't feel in competition, right? You see folks out here doing things that may be similar to what you want to do. Be inspired by that, right? Do your research, figure out, right, how to work more efficiently. And I think one thing that will help that I wasn't proactive with, that would have probably taken me light years ahead, was getting a mentor. It's so important. Our young people, especially when they're trying to figure out early years of school or making that transition from high school to college, finding someone outside of your parents. Yes, your parents know you in and out, but sometimes you need someone else maybe that can pour into you. Because, you know, you can tell your kids, when, like you said, you can share with them something, and then here comes somebody else saying the same exact thing. And for whatever reason, they eat that up. And you're like, I wrote the book. I've been here. I've been telling you. Right? But they receive it differently from someone else. So I would say mentorship really can help these young people navigate a little bit better. So then maybe they don't have to wait. I was third-year chemistry major, really trying to figure out, okay, what are my next steps, right? So that helps. But then also, I'm sorry, I just forgot something else I wanted to mention, something else that you had just brought up. It'll come to me. in a second.
Well, while it's coming to you, I do want to touch on the whole mentoring piece, and I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's important for all of us, and this isn't just for the young people, but certainly for them too. We all need a mentor. We all need some sort of coach outside of ourselves, our girlfriend or male friend group. It can't be our homies. It needs to be somebody professionally who's where you want to be or where you're trying to get to, or maybe, you know, to grow into. And I often tell people, if you are the smartest person in your circle,
You know, wrong one.
a new circle. It's perfectly okay to go back and visit and make a guest appearance in those past circles and old circles, but you're not likely to grow if all you're doing is pouring into other people who's pouring into you. So you go back, make a grand appearance, coach them up, give them insights, but you have to have a mentor or a coach. And it may not be, it may be a foreign concept to young people.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get to coach me. Find you a high performing, successful, by whatever you define success, not my definition, but your own. Find somebody who you really look up to, or you like how they hustling and what their results look like, because they've struggled, and you could benefit from learning from them, both as an adult like us, a young adult, and so forth. So I just wanted to underscore and highlight that more.
Yeah, it is very important. Like you said, even for adults, like I'm a coach, but I also have coaches, right? Just makes sense. We don't know it all, like you said. And so we need that accountability. Like you said, can't be your girlfriend will let you slide, right? You need somebody to hold you to what you said you want to do. But you were mentioning life happens. And so we do have to prepare for that. Again, that's part of adulting. And we don't always look like what we've been through. And that's where I encourage more of us as adults, as seasoned people, to share, right? We can't be so full of pride and ego that we are not sharing some of the downfalls that we have with these young people, right? Because they need to know that even though I thought I had it all planned out, I took a curveball, but then I bounced back, but then I did this, but then I did that, right? It only can help them when they come up against these obstacles, or prevent them from even encountering some of these things. Like you said, had we known better, had someone maybe share with us certain things, then we would have been able to better navigate through life situations.
I wish somebody had told me.
Exactly. And I think that just comes from us being more transparent and being willing to share, because guess what? It's not even about us. It's about coming back. I always say, each one reach one, continue to teach one, right? Your testimony, your story is so powerful. These kids have to hear that. So then they know, you know what? If something comes up, I can get through this. That's what people need to know. They need to know they can get through it, and that they have support still to help them navigate. That's what we want to encourage our young people.
And that's exactly the reason why it's been on my spirit to host this virtual Youth College Excellence Summit coming up on August 14th and 15th, because it's about sharing. It's about sharing those insights and experiences, not just from me, but from other career professionals, other young college students, entrepreneurs in the space who are going through these things and have lived experiences to draw on, recent and lived experiences, to be able to say, hey, don't do it like this unless you just like doing things the hard way, the long way. But really, let me give you some knowledge to help you to advance beyond some of the lessons I had to learn. And so that's the value in this 2-day summit coming up on the 14th and 15th of August, that I hope that those who are listening to this session will introduce to people in their lives, families who are undergoing and about to enter into these processes around college admissions and looking for funding, trying to figure out what careers. We have a whole career panel lined up with airline pilots, news anchors, real estate agents, architects, doctors, and more. Why? Because I think it's important for students to hear from people who are in those professions, to ask them different kind of questions. What's most challenging about that? What's most rewarding? Why did you choose that path? And if you had to do it all over again, would you do it the same way? So really
Right.
asking some next level questions to really give them more insight into, is this something that I'm, really interested in? And how can I extend that conversation? That would be a great opportunity, by the way, to introduce students to some of our panelists and see if there's some natural connections for those
Yes.
mentoring relationships moving
There you
forward.
go.
You
Yes.
find a mentor based on the college profession, the major you're interested in, or profession you may be thinking about. You may even want a mentor from an existing college student who's on their way out or powerhousing it on the academic level in college. And you're like, you know what, I could learn from these individuals. And so that's what we want to do with the summit. And I'm really excited to have Stephanie joining us on
I'm excited.
and being on our career professional panel and sharing her insight. And we even have her daughter, Chanel, who will be on the college student and young entrepreneur panel.
Yes.
Again, because she can do more than one thing at a time and do more than one thing.
Yes.
Really well. And we want to expose you to the notion that you can build economic wealth without going into debt. And you can also get a high quality education and pursue your entrepreneurial dreams at the same time.
Yes.
So we invite you to join us on that journey.
Yes, I can't wait. I'm so excited. I've always loved giving back. While I was at Howard University, I worked nonprofits. I worked in after-school programs, summer programs, tutoring, trying to help young people make that successful transition. I don't know if I shared that with you, Chrissy. I did college tours. That was actually my first business, Student Success Services. So I know that'll probably be a portion of your business too, helping folks, get out, go to these colleges, show them you need to meet this person. We need to go to this department, right? Things like that. So I did that. So I'm so glad we had the opportunity to meet, because if you need chaperones or any other assistance,
I know who to call on now.
Oh yeah, look, we did that, but it was exciting, and it speaks to what we're talking about, giving back, sharing with our young people what they need so that they can make a successful transition without getting into debt.
Ideally, that's the goal. But look, I want to touch on the college tours. Two things. One, if you can't get out, many colleges have virtual ones now.
Okay.
They're doing like 3D tours of the campus. You can get a feel all from your computer. Two, if and when you can get out. You know what I used to do with my sons when they were little? And for those who have young children in the home, this is for you too. Everywhere we'd go, whether it's to Baton Rouge or to visit grandma in Alabama or a cousin in Atlanta or out to Texas, we visited colleges everywhere we went.
Like that.
Organically. We didn't go and invent a trip. We took advantage of every existing opportunity we had to expose them. Did I think they were going to go to every school? For years, my son, they went to Baton Rouge on a work trip with me one time. And then they were like, oh, we're going to LSU. And that shifted. But it was in an effort to get them exposed. I do believe when you can see yourself in an environment, you're more likely to envision yourself there.
Yeah.
And so get out, go on those college tours. You can do a self-guided tour. A lot of those, I really didn't want nobody talking a hole in my head. I just wanted to go visit the campus, fumble my way around, ask questions. If you're interested in a fully, guided tour, that they have those available too.
Mm-hmm.
Get your kids out. If you're going to North Carolina, you live in Virginia, or if you're going up to New York to visit family, or you're going wherever, on that drive, pull into a local college on the way, plan it out on your route and say, you know what, we're only going to spend 10 minutes here, but I want you to see the campus.
Right.
We're going to spend 10 minutes here. And if school's in session, I would stop students. We would stop students. And I was like, hey,
ask them questions.
Yeah. How do you like it here? I said, we're just passing through. How do you like it here? You really want to know what's going on at a college campus? Ask students who are currently there. Well, the food ain't good. The dorms, the administration, they're going to tell you those things without you even having to extract it out of them. It won't take much to get that information out. But you did bring up a great point about the whole college touring. While we're talking about it, let me put a pitch in and say, parents, when you're working with your kids, please don't let them fully decide where they're going. Why do I say that? Unless you have a full college savings plan and the money set aside, a GI Bill they're going to leverage, or you're prepared to pay for it out of pocket, great, pick wherever you want. But if you are in a situation like many of us, where you need to be judicious about how you spend your money and to find schools that you can afford, go to schools you can afford. It makes no sense to have nothing but 50K a year schools on your child's short list of schools, and you can't afford none of them.
Yeah, that's stressful.
You're setting them up for stress and yourself, because you're up late, they sleeping good, and you're trying to figure out how we gonna pay for this.
Right.
She really has her mind set up. Manage their expectations early on, K through 12. When you get to that age, you're gonna be looking for affordable schools, in state, out of state, whatever your dream is. I'm happy to help facilitate you getting to where you want to be. But here's what we're not gonna do. We're not gonna pick schools we can't afford, even if I had to pay out of pocket a little bit of money. It needs to be something that you can afford, I can afford, we can afford. And if you're willing to roll up your sleeves and look for some scholarships. So that's my tip for the night, from my own experiences and working with families. Please don't be out here. I always tell students, they ask, how many schools should I put on the list? 5 to 10 schools or more.
I was like that too.
Also scale it down, or you can increase it and go more than 10. My sons apply to more than 10, but I would say 5 to 10 is a good rule of thumb, but then you adjust it based on your situation. But here's the thing, you should have schools on your list at different price points. So if you get admitted to all 10, you can at least say, well, I got some affordable ones over here, and I got some high expectation and high cost ones over here, and you can have a more informed decision-making conversation with parents.
Options are important. I say that for this, even dealing with my clients, if you have options, you're never pigeonholed, you're never forced in any one space. Create options for yourself. That's a perfect opportunity to create options.
Absolutely. So with that being said, we're going to wrap up here tonight. I hope that you found a few golden nuggets. I think there were plenty in this conversation to really connect with. We want you to connect with us on August 14th and 15th, 2021, at our exciting Youth College Excellence Summit, where we are going to educate, equip, and empower families to really achieve their college and career goals. So thank you very, very much, Stephanie, for your time.
You're welcome.
And I look forward to seeing more and working with you in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Christy. This was an honor. I'm so excited to share it, and I look forward to the summit, August 14th and 15th.
Thank you. So good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.